strategy to offset some of the events or a repetition of the events that have taken place here in Los Angeles recently. We have to go to the root. We have to go to the cause. Dealing with the condition itself is not enough.
Dear Mr. Massa, I'm just trying to mind my own business. What's the matter? It's just another day, another black king captured. I'm about to lose my brain, stuck inside this ghetto rapture. I got a lot of smoke. If you want it, you can have it. They want a hat trick, but this is black girl magic. Ain't talking about the kind that'll make you disappear, but I'm talking about the power of the melanin within. Ain't looking for trouble, but I'ma say this one time. I put two dukes up if you try to touch mine. We still want justice for Samir and Trayvon. You say you don't see color, but racism ain't blind. They targeting little kids whose skin look just like mine. So I'm paranoid, it's a war zone outside. And I'm a black queen, so if you ask me to step out of my car, you gon' have to snatch me. Cause I ain't going no damn well. Had to spend my whole life living unfair. Ancestors got my back and they right here. You can never understand, it's a nightmare. Living in my black shoes by the black rules. You can keep your handshake, I don't dap coon. The white man to go nuts if he can't shoot. But you all on his side like a damn fool. Make it make sense.
We are oppressed.
Queen.
We are exploited. We are downtrodden.
Make it make
We are
sense.
denied not only civil rights, but even human rights.
Amadeus.
So the only way we're going to get some of this
Amadeus.
oppression and exploitation
Queen.
away from us or aside from us is come together
Queen.
against the common enemy. Who taught you to hate the texture of your
Amadeus.
hair? Who taught you to hate the color of your skin?
Amadeus.
Parents, pay attention to the books, the school system, even to your little children. Lies mixed with wisdom. His skin too bright, so he was blind to the prison. My skin just right, so I collide with division. You trying to pray to God, but we tired of religion. No savior saving, we got to save our savings. We used to pay miss, how we gon' make the slave rich? But who's to blame, and tell me why you complaining? We need a team effort just to rule the nation. Like a bad relationship, missing communication. We missing moderation. They trying to get a poison to my population. No reparations. I'm getting tired of Satan.
We are oppressed.
Queen.
I'm getting tired of waiting.
We are downtrodden.
Queen.
We are denied not only civil rights, but even human rights.
Amadeus.
So the only way we're going to get some of this
Amadeus.
oppression and exploitation.
Queen.
All right, hello everyone. Sorry about that. I was multitasking. I'm sitting here trying to edit a video at the same time and didn't realize the music had stopped. Okay, so hello everyone. Thanks for tuning back in once again to the original Queen CI-7 show. I'm your host, Queen CI-7, and this is your Sunday morning wake-up call. So as you're coming in, please feel free to go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Be sure to click that notification bell and click the word all so you're notified each time the Queen Goddess goes live. All right, so without further ado, let's get ready to get into it. Okay, this is what you all have been asking me about, honey. Okay, but I want you all to pay attention because after this video, I'm going to be coming right back. Okay, I'm going to be coming right back because I just got some breaking news. So I'm going to be coming right back. Okay, so please stay tuned. Now, with that all being said, also don't forget, for those of you who have memberships to the channel, we're going to be talking about, we're going to be having True Crime Sundays today also. All right, so you don't want to miss that. Okay. So, hey, Claudette, Mr. Elevation, Deronda, we the people. All right, Latasha is here. Leon's in the house. All right, let's get into it. Did I say Mr. Elevation? Anita Harrell. All right, shout out to all of my loyal royals. I see you, Chris, and everyone tuned into the Queen. Hey, my Aunt Egypt. Okay, Miss AP, Chris B. All right. With that all being said, let's get started. But first, let's have a brief word from my sponsor. I see you, Nancy X and Dervis. All right, here we go.
Do not buy 12 Tribes on Earth hair growth oil and hair magic elixir unless you want super healthy, gorgeous hair that grows. They have a whole line of amazing hair growth products, including hair growth leave-in conditioner spray, hair growth shampoo, hair growth spray, and hair growth butter. I'm starting to sense a theme here. They include quality natural ingredients. They smell amazing, and you can see the results for yourself. So if you're looking for healthy hair growth for your natural or relaxed hair, try 12 Tribes on Earth today.
Okay, so don't forget you can purchase 12 Tribes Hair Oil at Etsy.com. Just look for Lisa Crafts. You can also find it at Walmart.com. Okay, and let me just remind you all, for those of you who missed the video on yesterday about the other black young man who was found in a shed, hung. Please go back and watch. There's lots of updates and information about Trey Reed and the second autopsy as well. Now, they put a age restriction on that video because of the lie that the police tell when someone is found in one of those trees, someone who looks like me. Okay, because I said something that sounded like the word. I didn't actually say the word, but I said something that sounded like it. So anyway, I have edited the video, so they will hopefully take that off, and then you don't have to sign in to watch it, because I know that could be a headache. I literally hate when I have to sign in to watch people's videos. Okay, so with that all being said, and no surprise there, because do they really want me talking about that? I don't think so. Okay, so anyway, let's get into it, because I told y'all Al Sharpton was a low-down, bobble-headed fool. Some of y'all didn't believe me, didn't you? Some of y'all still love Mr. Sharpton, think he's one of our best civil rights activists and all that. But Al Sharpton's low down, dirty, and nefarious, in my opinion, and we're going to get into it. Now, let me just state for the record, in case Bobblehead tries to sue me, okay, because he's denied these allegations, mind you. So with that all being said, I can't verify or deny these allegations. But I do believe these allegations because I know Mr. Sharpton was a whole informant. Okay, and he had to go ahead and admit it. He had to go ahead and admit it because all the dirt was spilled on him. Okay, somebody dropped the receipts, aka documentation. And so, he had no choice but to come clean. Okay, so anyway, with that all being said, hold on, let me see something here. I'm trying to make sure my Wi-Fi is on my phone so I can pull up my chat on my phone also. What's going on here? Okay, I had to reconnect. Okay, there we go. All right, so let's get into it. Okay, Mr. Elevation said the bobblehead denies everything. Yes, he does. Most hated bronze flat power guy. That said sellout Sharpton and Jesse Jackson. Okay, I have to agree, beloved. I have to agree. So let's get started. Okay, let me just go ahead and pull this up real quick. Hold on. All right, so let's get into it. And I'm going to give you all the information. And here's the thing. You all decide for yourselves whether you're convinced. Okay? You all, Reggie said not the pick before the lap band surgery. Yes, because that's when he was a whole snitch. Okay? That's when he was known as CI-7. Okay? CI-7. Confidential informant number 7. Okay? Now let's get into it. Al Sharpton. Now, we already know that he was secretly working for the feds. Okay, so when friends and family members gathered at the White House for a private celebration of Michelle Obama's 50th birthday. Hold on. I'm moving too fast and doing too much. Before we get into that, let's go to him first so there's no discrepancy. Let's go to him first admitting that he was a whole informant. Okay? Let's go to that footage first. For anyone who's never seen it. Everyone, please like and share.
Johnson.
And welcome, everyone. I'm Maurice Dubois. Those stories are straight ahead. But first, after all these years, the Reverend Al Sharpton admits he was an FBI informant.
Yes, he says that he was the cat that got the rats, but others say that Sharpton's secret life was not by choice. CBS 2 political reporter Marcia Kramer has the story.
Michelle Obama probably never knew that one of the guests at her recent White House 50th birthday party was an FBI mafia informant who helped bring down members of the Genovese crime family. Reverend Al Sharpton, now a confidant of both the First Lady and the President and of Mayor Bill de Blasio, has his own unique take on his days as the government's confidential informant number 7.
In my own mind, I was not an informant. I was cooperating with investigations.
The revelations threaten to embarrass Sharpton as he kicks off his National Action Network convention this week with de Blasio and President Obama the headliners. But de Blasio, who calls Sharpton family, is sticking by his buddy.
Doesn't change the relationship one bit. I'm very proud to be his friend. I think he has done a lot of good for the city of New York and for this country. I have the exact same positive view of him I had before.
Sharpton has been dogged for years by reports that he was an FBI informant, helping the government go after boxing promoter Don King and music executives. Now we learn he also went after mobsters, including the legendary Vincent the Chin Gigante, the so-called oddfather who paraded around in his bathrobe and pajamas. Though he has ducked and dodged questions about whether he wore a wire for the feds, that wasn't possible today since a batch of government documents were made public.
The conversations were recorded.
And there's also the issue of how he became an informant. Some say he was pressured into it after he was caught in a drug sting. This HBO undercover sting video that aired in 2002 shows Sharpton with a cowboy hat pulled down over his bouffant hairdo. Sharpton appears to nod when an agent offers him a cut from future drug sales. But now Sharpton claims he went to the feds for protection from threats from mob-connected music executives.
Hold on, did y'all hear that? Did she say he had a cowboy hat pulled down over his bouffant hairdo? Now, I want you all to pay attention. Also, okay, Root Trackers is laughing too. That's what I'm talking about. Not his bouffant hairdo, honey. I am so done. But listen, I want you all to pay attention to how they say that some say he was pressured into doing so. Let me tell you about that. Pressured? No, he wasn't. His behind didn't want to go to prison. They had him on video in a whole drug deal. Okay, he was involved in the exchange of illegal substances. There's the footage. You see, that's how snitching goes, doesn't it? Why is it different for him? He said that he didn't feel like he was a informant. He felt like he was cooperating in the investigation. Well, here's the thing. If you, sir, have been accused of committing a crime and then you're facing jail or prison time, at the end of the day, that's what people do is snitch. Okay, that's what they do to keep themselves from going down, and they tell them the other people involved in certain things. So that's what he did. What's he talking about? Cooperating in the investigation. You are a rat, just like they said. Confidential informant number 7. Sit down somewhere. Okay? Up there snitching on Don King, a man who looks like you. Oh, and by the way, those other people that he was snitching on, supposedly, allegedly, in the music industry also look like him. And what in the world was he doing hanging out with Jimmy Henchman, aka James Roseman, who's in prison for life, a whole thug? Okay, a whole thug. I want y'all to pay attention. Al needs to sit down somewhere, but let's continue.
And was asked to rat out the bad guys.
They were threatening to kill me.
And while the feds say his information helped bring down guys like Gigante, Sharpton says he didn't know how his information was being used.
I have never met any of these guys. The guy with the pajamas, I don't walk around with guys that walk outside pajamas. I never met these guys.
Well, Sharpton says he's not embarrassed by anything that he did. What he is embarrassed about, he says, is how, quote, fat he used to be now that he has reinvented himself as a skinny guy. By the way, sources say the mayor will cut the ribbon tomorrow at the start of Sharpton's 3-day National Action Network convention. Christina Maurice?
Well, he does definitely look different.
He does.
Yes, Marcia.
Tell you something. They let him slide, and de Blasio was still cool with him because they know he's a whole raccoon, period. And here's the thing. Now, he's sitting there talking about they were threatening to kill me. Okay, they may have threatened to kill you. You know why they threatened to kill him, though? In my opinion, they probably threatened to kill him once they found out the feds had him on video. Had them on video, and they probably felt like he would be the loose cannon. He would be the one to try to cut a deal to save himself and snitch. Okay? Sit down somewhere else, Sharpton. At the end of the day, talking about they were threatening to kill me. Well, you know, that's usually what happens when you hang around with gangsters and thugs. Okay? Somewhere along the way, one of them just might threaten to take you out. All right? Please sit down somewhere trying to make excuses, but let's get into it. Let's get into it. Now, when friends and family members gathered recently at the White House this is an old article, but I want y'all to pay attention, or old information. The documentation came out some years ago, and I happened to run across it, but let's get into it. Okay, so when friends and family members gathered recently at the White House for a private celebration of Michelle Obama's 50th birthday, one of the invited partygoers was a former paid FBI mafia informant. That same man attended February state dinner in honor of French President Francois Hollande. He was seated with his girlfriend at a table adjacent to President Barack Obama, who is likely unaware that according to federal agents, his guest once interacted with members of 4 of New York City's 5 organized crime families. He even secretly taped some of those wise guys using a briefcase that FBI technicians outfitted with a recording device. Now, here's what I want you all to pay attention to. Now, what I'm about to tell you right now, listen closely to this, because some of this, okay, when the Black activist accused him of the trying to set up Assata Shakur, some of the things that you're going to hear in this information is going to be relevant, because they're going to say some of these things, which is what further makes me believe that that the guy is not lying. The main accuser is not lying. But let me continue. So anyway, they fitted his briefcase with a recording device. Now, that being said, the high-profile Obama supporter was also on the dais atop of the U.S. Capitol steps last year when the president was sworn in for a second term. He was seated in front of the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, 2 rows behind Beyonce and Jay-Z, and about 20 feet from Eric Holder, the country's top law enforcement officer. As head of the Department of Justice, Attorney General Holder leads an agency that once reported that Obama's inauguration guest also had La Cosa Nostra contacts beyond Gotham and engaged in conversations with LCN members and used other parts of the United States. Now, the former mob snitch has become a regular in the White House, where he has met with the 44th president in the East Room, the Roosevelt Room, and the Oval Office. He has also attended Obama's Christmas party, speeches, policy announcements, and even watched the Super Bowl with the first family, an evening the man has called one of the highlights of my life. Now, during these gatherings, he has mingled with cabinet members, top Obama officials or aides, military leaders, business executives, and members of Congress. His former Confederates were a decidedly dossier of ex-convicts. Listen to this, ex-convicts. So what's the whole reverend doing hanging out with ex-convicts, extortionists, heroin traffickers, and mob henchmen? Now, the men's surreptitious recordings FBI records show aided his government handlers in the successful targeting of powerful mafia figures with nicknames such as Benny Eggs, Chin, Fritzy, Corky, and Baldy Don. Now, later this week, Obama will travel to New York and appear in a Manhattan hotel ballroom at the side of the man whom FBI agents primarily referred to as CI-7, short for Confidential Informant Number 7, in secret court filings. Now, in those documents, investigators vouch for him as a reliable, productive, and accurate source of information about underworld figures. Now, the ex-informant has been one of Obama's most unwavering backers, a cheerleader who has nightly bludgeoned the president's Republican opponents in televised broadcasts. And for his part, Obama has sought the man's counsel, embraced him publicly, and saluted his commitment to fight injustice and inequality. The president has even commented favorably on his friend's felt figure, the physical manifestation of a rehabilitation effort that coincided with Obama's ascension to the White House. This radical makeover has brought the man wealth, a daily TV show, bespoke suits, a luxury Upper West Side apartment, and a spot on bestseller lists. Living lavish, mind you. Now, most importantly, he has the ear of the President of the United States, an equally remarkable and perplexing achievement for the former FBI asset known as CI-7, the Reverend Al Sharpton. A lengthy investigation has uncovered remarkable details about Sharpton's his past work as an informant from a joint organized crime task force comprised of FBI agents and NYPD detectives, as well as his dealings with an assortment of wise guys. Now, beginning in the mid-1980s and spanning several years, Sharpton's cooperation was fraught with danger, since the FBI's principal targets were leaders of the Genovese crime family, now the country's largest and most feared mafia outfit. In addition to aiding the FBI and the NYPD task force Force, which was known as the Genovese Squad, Sharpton's cooperation extended to several other investigative agencies. Now, TSG's account of Sharpton's secret life at CI-7 is based on hundreds of pages of confidential FBI affidavits and documents released by the Bureau in response to Freedom of Information Act requests, as well as court records and extensive interviews with 6 members of the Genovese Squad, as well as other law enforcement officials to whom the activists provided assistance. Now, like almost every other FBI informant, Sharpton was solely an information source. The parameters of his cooperation did not include Sharpton ever surfacing publicly or testifying on a witness stand because they couldn't blow his cover. See, they couldn't let people know what he was doing, because here's the thing, and I want you all to really pay attention to this. This is how you know Al Sharpton is an ish. Even if he had not done what he did to Assata Shakur, allegedly, even without that, he's still a low down dirty snake in the grass, because here he is pretending to be so down for the Black community, such an advocate for social injustices that befall us and everything, but yet he's working with the same organization that enacted COINTELPRO on the Black Panther Party. What is he doing working with them, period, for any reason? These people have always nefariously gone against the Black community as it pertains to our leaders and revolutionaries, okay? So yes, they were using him, Reggie, but he allowed them to. He allowed them to for his own nefarious reasons, which we'll find out later. Now, with that all being said, Genovese Squad investigators representing both the FBI and NYPD recalled how Sharpton, who at this time of this report was 59 years old, mind you, deftly extracted information from wise guys. Now, in fact, one Gambino crime family figure became so comfortable with the protest leader that he spoke openly during 10 wired face-to-face meetings about a wide range of mob business, from shylocking and extortions to death threats, and the sanity of Vincent Chin Gigante, the Genovese boss, who long feigned mental illness in a bid to deflect law enforcement scrutiny. So he played crazy. Well, we know they do that all the time, play the mental illness card. So as the mafioso expounded on these topics, Sharpton's briefcase, a specially customized Hartman model, recorded every word. Now, there they go, talking about that briefcase. Keep that in mind. Remember the briefcase, people. Remember the briefcase. Now, task force members who were interviewed separately spoke on the condition of anonymity when describing Sharpton's work as an informant and the Genovese Squad's activities. Some of these investigators provided internal FBI documents to a reporter. Now, records obtained by a publication show that information gathered by Sharpton was used by federal investigators to help secure court authorization to bug 2 Genovese family social clubs, including Gigante's Greenwich Village headquarters, 3 autos used by crime family leaders, and more than a dozen phone lines. Okay, do y'all hear all this that he was doing, helping them with? Now, these listening devices and wiretaps were approved during the course of a major racketeering investigation targeting the Genovese family's hierarchy. A total of 8 separate U.S. District Court judges presiding in 4 federal jurisdictions signed interception orders that were based on sworn FBI affidavits, including information gathered by Sharpton. The phones bugged as a result of these court orders included 2 lines in Gigante's Manhattan townhouse, the home phone of Genovese Captain Dominic Baldy Dom Cantarino, and office lines of music industry power Morris Levy, a longtime Genovese family associate. The resulting surreptitious recordings were eventually used to help convict an assortment of mafia members and associates. Investigators also used Sharpton's information in an application for a wiretap on the telephone in the Queens residence of Federico Frizzi Giovanelli, a Genovese soldier. Giovanelli was sentenced to 20 years in prison for racketeering following a trial during which those recordings were played for jurors. In a recent interview, the 82-year-old Giovanelli, now 3 years removed from his latest stint in federal custody, said he was unaware that Sharpton contributed in any fashion to his phone's bugging. He then jokingly chided a reporter for inquiring about the civil rights leader's past, saying, "Poor Sharpton, he cleaned up his life and you want to ruin him." Giovanelli laughed. Now, while Sharpton's acrimonious history with law enforcement, especially the NYPD, rankled some Genovese squad investigators, they nonetheless grudgingly acknowledged in interviews that the activist produced for those that he would go on to frequently pillory. Now, Genovese squad members, however, did not share with Sharpton specific details about how they were using the information he was gathering for them. This is standard practice since FBI affidavits in support of wiretap applications are filed under seal by Department of Justice prosecutors. Still, Sharpton was briefed in advance of his undercover sorties. Now, so he was well aware of the squad's investigative interest in Gigante and his mafia cronies. Now, they say this because Al Sharpton sat there and said, in the interview that he didn't know what they were using this stuff for. The stuff that the information that he was gathering on them, the intel, he didn't know what they were using it for. Well, he may not have known specifically how they were going to use it against them, but nonetheless, he knew they were going to use it against them to put them in prison. So he wants to play stupid. I just want you all to pay attention to that. Al Sharpton is nothing but a big ass liar. Okay, he's a liar. That's what he is. Now, Sharpton vehemently denies having worked as an FBI informant. I want you all to pay attention. He denied it until the documents came out. When he knew that he was about to go on tour or whatever, and then, these documents came out and he's made friends with Obama and Michelle and all of that, he knew it was going to ruin his reputation. So then he finally wants to come out and admit it. But he had been lying and lying, okay? So should we believe anything he says as it pertains to Assata Shakur? I absolutely don't believe him. Now, with that all being said, goes on to say he has alleged that claims of government cooperation were attempts by dark forces to stunt his aggressive brand of civil rights advocacy or perhaps get him killed. Al Sharpton, sit down somewhere, trying to play the victim and lying and acting like he didn't do anything. Now, in his most recent book, The Rejected Stone, which hit bestseller list following an October 2013 publication, Sharpton claimed to have once been set up by the government, whose agents later leaked false information that could have gotten me killed, he said. So I have been seriously tested in what I believe over the years. Now, in an interview, Sharpton denied working as a confidential informant. See, just pay attention to a whole lot of lying. Okay, this man has lied about this all this time. Okay, just lied as long as he could till he couldn't lie anymore. All right, so we're supposed to believe you now, Mr. Sharpton, with your bouffant hairdo. Okay, so anyway, he added that, so I have been seriously tested in what I believe over the years. Now, in an interview, he denied working as a confidential informant, claiming that his prior cooperation with FBI agents was limited to efforts to prompt investigations for rug dealing in minority communities, as well as the swindling of Black artists in the recording industry. Okay, he also repeatedly denied being flipped by federal agents in the course of an undercover operation. When asked specifically about his recording of the Gambino crime family member, Sharpton was non-committal. I'm not saying yes, I'm not saying no. That's what he told him. That pretty much means he did it. Okay, when you can't just give a flat out straight answer, you're hiding something. Now, if Sharpton's account is to be believed, he was simply a concerned citizen who voluntarily and briefly joined arm in arm with federal agents. You see, if he was just a concerned citizen, that would not have made him a snitch, because we all know the definition of a snitch or a rat, okay, is a person who's facing criminal charges themselves, and in order to, get away with those charges, to not be tried and convicted, or to get less time if they even are, they snitch on other people. Okay, they become informants, and that's what he didn't want people to know. He wanted to make it as though, oh no, I was just a concerned citizen, and I thought that these people in the Black community were selling illegal substances, and so I felt like I need to say something. No, you were snitching. Okay, but let me continue. So anyway, goes on to say, the other explanation for Sharpton's cooperation, one that has uniformly been offered by knowledgeable law enforcement agents, presents the Reverend in a less noble light. You see, worried that he would or could face criminal charges, Sharpton opted for the path of self-preservation and did just what the FBI requested. Well, of course he did. Okay? Now he wants to sit here and play cat and mouse games, which is usually how someone is compelled to repeatedly record a gangster discussing murder, extortion, and loan sharking. Okay, that's why he did it. Now, Sharpton spoke for an hour in an office of the House of Justice, his Harlem headquarters, where he had just finished addressing a crowd of about 200 people that included his 2 adult daughters and his second wife, from whom he has been separated for 10 years. Now, a few minutes into the interview, Sharpton asked, "Are you taping this?" And a reporter answered that he was not recording their interview, but had a digital recorder in which to do so. Sharpton declined that request. All right. He didn't want to record that. Now, in the absence of any real examination or exhumation of Sharpton's past involvement with the FBI and mafia, his denials have served the civil rights leader well. Okay, it was good in his best interest to lie, because imagine how Black people would have been looking at him way back when, because this was in the 80s when he was doing all of this, just so you know. Okay, so scores of articles and broadcast reports about the Obama era rehabilitation of Sharpton have mentioned his inflammatory past. Okay, Tawana Brawley, Crown Heights, Freddie's Fashion Mart, and various anti-Semitic and homophobic statements. But his organized crime connections and related informant work have received so much scrutiny. Now, in a 60 Minutes profile aired 3 months before the August 2011 launch of Sharpton's MSNBC show, correspondent Leslie Stahl reported on the tame Sharpton's metamorphosis from loudmouth activist to trusted White House advisor, who's become the president's go-to Black leader. Now, as for prior underworld entanglements, those were quickly dispatched. These were allegations of mob ties, never proved. This was Stahl flatly declared at the time. Now, as host of MSNBC's Politics Nation, Sharpton now reluctantly identifies himself as a member of the media, if not actually a journalist. He spends his time at 30 Rockefeller Plaza, surrounded by reporters, editors, and researchers committed to accuracy and the exposure of those who violate the public trust. In fact, Sharpton himself delights in a daily feature that seeks to expose liars, hypocrites, and others engaged in deceit. Sounds like himself. If we're being honest, that sounds like himself. Now, his targets tend to be Republican opponents of the Obama administration. And as he wraps his segment, Sharpton points his finger at the camera and addresses his query. "Nice try, but we got you." That's what he said. Now, in addition to his MSNBC post, Sharpton heads the National Action Network, which describes itself as a Christian activist organization. Obama, who refers to Sharpton as Rev or Reverend Al, is scheduled to deliver a keynote address at the group's annual convention in New York City. Mayor Bill de Blasio was to preside Wednesday over that convention's ribbon-cutting ceremony, while Holder and 3 Obama cabinet secretaries will deliver speeches. Now, Sharpton has been a leading supporter of Holder, who spoke at the National Action Network's 2012 convention and saluted the Reverend for your partnership and your friendship, and also for your tireless efforts to speak out for the voiceless, to stand up for the powerless, and to shine a light on the problems we must solve and the promises we must fulfill. That Friday, Sharpton appeared on a panel at a Department of Justice forum led by Tony West, the agency's third-ranking official. West thanked Sharpton for his leadership day in and day out on issues of reconciliation and community restoration. Now, according to its most recent IRS return, which Sharpton signed in mid-November of 2013, the National Action Network pays him $241,402 annually for serving as president and CEO. In return for that hefty salary, Sharpton, who hosts a 3-hour daily show in addition to his nightly cable TV program, reportedly works a 40-hour week for the not-for-profit, which lists unpaid tax liabilities totaling $813,000. Now, for longtime observers, the new Sharpton's public prominence and West Wing access is bewildering, considering that his history, mob ties included, could charitably be described as checkered. Yeah, he definitely has a checkered past. Now, in fact, Obama has banished others guilty of lesser transgressions, like Reverend Jeremiah Wright. Do you all remember that? Now, I find it interesting that even after Obama found out about this dirt on Sharpton that he still was so close with him. But y'all remember how he got rid of Jeremiah Wright, Reverend Jeremiah Wright. That's because the people that were around Obama didn't like him and didn't like what he was saying. See, these same people didn't have a problem with Bobblehead Sharpton because Bobblehead Sharpton, they knew he was a raccoon. And at the end of the day, they also knew that he was bringing dirt to them on not only mafia people, but as well other people who looked like him. Okay, but let's continue. Now, Sharpton now calls himself a refined agitator, an activist no longer prone to incendiary language or careless provocations. Indeed, a Google check confirms that it has been years since he labeled a detractor the F word that rhymes with maggot. So he actually used to say that word. Okay, use the term almost with an H or derisively refer to the Orthodox community as diamond merchants. Oh, really? Is that what you were doing back then, Al Sharpton? Now, as an informant in development and as federal investigator referred to Sharpton, the protest leader was seen as an intriguing prospective source since he had significant contacts in politics, boxing, and the music industry. Before he was flipped in the course of an FBI sting operation in 1983, see, that's how we know. Pay attention to that year. 1983 is when he started working with the feds. Sharpton had established relationships with promoter Don King. See, he did Don King dirty, okay? Getting in this man's face, smiling, skinning, and grinning, and was getting information and intel on him for the feds, allegedly. Now, various elected officials and several powerful New York hoodlums involved in concert promotion, record distribution, and talent management. At the time, the music business was overrun by hustlers, con artists, both black and white. Sharpton recalled in his 1996 autobiography. A federal agent who was not a part of the Genovese squad, but who also used Sharpton as an informant, recalled that everyone was trying to mine his music industry ties. Now, in fact, by any measure, Sharpton himself was a mafia associate, the law enforcement designation given to mob affiliates who, while not initiated, work with and for crime family members. Now, while occupying the lowest rung on the LCN org chart, which is topped by a boss, underboss, or consigliere, associates far outnumber made men and play central roles in the crime family's operation, from money-making pursuits to more violent endeavors. Now, here's something I want you all to pay attention to. The man that was speaking, the former mobster. Now, you remember this man was told that Al Sharpton had given information on him that got him sent to prison, right? But Al Sharpton acted like he didn't know who that man was. Okay? Didn't he say, I don't hang out with people who wear pajamas and all that? If he didn't hang out with them, how could he have gathered any information on them? You see how it's hypocritical and contradictory, or not hypocritical, but it's contradictory. Okay? And retired federal bank says, brilliant professor, the best news show. Thank you, beloved, for your kind words and your contributions to the channel. Peace, love, and blessings. Okay, so do you all hear this? He was just telling lies, honey. Now, for example, an episode recounted by sources highlighted the sensitive nature of Sharpton's cooperation with the FBI and the NYPD task force. In advance of seeking court authorization to bug a pair of Genovese family social clubs and a Cadillac used by Gigante and Contarino, a draft version of a wiretap affidavit was circulated for review within the Genovese squad, which operated from the FBI's Lower Manhattan headquarters. Here's another thing, too. This is what I meant to tell you guys. Remember how the man was told by the reporter after 3 years after he got out of prison, how he was told by the reporter that Al Sharpton had been the one to, in fact, snitch on him and get him sent to prison? The man didn't even know it. He said, I had no idea that Sharpton had anything to do with this, basically. So why would they have been threatening to kill him? Why would they have been threatening to kill him? Think about that, okay? Think about that. He said they were threatening to kill me. Why were they trying to kill you, Al? Those people thought you were their friends. They didn't even know that you were gathering intel on them and going back and snitching to the feds, and didn't even know that's why they got sent to prison. So they were probably not threatening to kill him, because without that, without them knowing that he was a whole snitch gathering intel, they likely wouldn't have had a motive. Okay? They likely wouldn't have had a motive. So please pay attention. This is all a hot mess, but let me continue. So, with that all being said, a draft version of a wiretap affidavit was circulated for review within the Genovese squad. Okay, now the 53-page document operated. I'm sorry, the 53-page document, which detailed the probable cause to believe that listening devices would yield incriminating conversations, concerned some investigators due to the degree to which the activities of Sharpton were described in the documents. Now, while the affidavit prepared by FBI agent Gerald King and a federal prosecutor only referred to Sharpton as CI-7, the document included the name of a Gambino monster whom Sharpton taped, as well as the dates and details of 5 of their recorded meetings. Now, such specificity was problematic since the possibility existed that the affidavit's finalized version could someday be turned over to defense lawyers in the discovery phase of a criminal trial. And then they would likely be able to figure out quickly that Al Sharpton had to be the one that snitched, because these would be the people that literally had talked to him, and they know what they told him and what they said in his presence. So that's why they were concerned. So investigators fretted that Sharpton could easily be unmasked by the Gambino member, who, if ever questioned about his meetings with CI-7, would surely realize that Sharpton was the wired informant referred to in the FBI document. That discovery, of course, could have placed Sharpton's life in grave danger. The Gambino wise guy, too, likely would have faced trouble, since he was recorded speaking about a wide range of mafia matters, including Gigante's illegal operations. So he'd have been in trouble for even dealing with Sharpton, because you know how that goes in the mafia. If you bring in somebody who turns out to be a whole informant, you're going down right along with them for having a lack of judgment. Okay, so he would have definitely been in trouble too. So the Genovese power, rightly paranoid about bugged phones and listening devices, famously forbid fellow gangsters from even speaking his name. In fact, if a wise guy had to refer to Gigante during an in-person meeting, a quick stroke of the chin was the acceptable means of identification. That was smart. Now, in response to concerns about the King affidavit, the draft, which a source provided to a publication, was rewritten to carefully shroud Sharpton's work with government agents. The affidavit's final version, which was submitted to 2 federal judges, no longer included the disclosure that CI-7 had consensually recorded his conversations with a gangster. The wise guy's name was also deleted from the document, as was any reference to the Gambino family or the informant's SEX. Now, instead, the revamped affidavit simply noted that CI-7 reported to the FBI various details of Genovese family records. Now, the actual source of that valuable intelligence about Gigante and company had been carefully obscured. Now, as were the details of how that information was obtained via Sharpton's battery-powered valise. Now, with that all being said, do you all see all the trouble that it sounds like they went through just to keep Sharpton from being outed? So when he's talking about people were threatening to kill him, well, why were these people threatening to kill him? Okay. Greta said Al has no shame. Dirty, low down CI. Okay. I mean, okay, so let me find my place. Hold on, beloveds. Okay, so anyway, goes on to say, as were the details of how that information was obtained via Sharpton's battery-powered valise. But despite efforts like this to protect Sharpton, some details of his informant work leaked out on January of 1988. Now, when New York Newsday reported that the civil rights activists had in fact cooperated with federal investigations targeting organized crime figures and even Don King. Now, though he had reportedly made incriminating admissions to the newspaper, Sharpton quickly issued vehement denials that he had snitched on anyone. So just like he lied about snitching on Don King, please pay attention. That's why I don't believe that he didn't try to set up Assata Shakur. We're going to get to that. Just be patient, beloveds. I'm laying out all the groundwork and giving you the backstory in detail so that when we get to that part, it all makes sense. Okay? Now, while acknowledging contact with law enforcement officials, Sharpton, then involved in the early stages of the Tawana Brawley hoax, said he sought the help of investigators to combat the illegal substance epidemic, the one that we had in the Black community in the 80s that was ravaging New York's poorest communities. Sharpton also claimed to have contacted agents and pledged his assistance. Now, as a mafia associate allegedly, after a mafia associate allegedly threatened him over a music industry dispute. Okay, so that makes sense. So somebody threatened him over a music industry dispute. It was likely over money. Okay, he's sitting there acting like, oh, they were threatening to kill me. Yeah, right. Now, Sharpton asserted that a phone installed in his Brooklyn apartment by federal investigators in mid-1987 was there to serve as a hotline for the public to report illegal substance dealing. Now, he flatly denied recording phone conversations at the direction of law enforcement agents. Please make it all make sense. Are y'all believing this? Because I am not. He has an excuse or an explanation for everything that he did dirty. Now, in one radio interview, Sharpton even declared, saying, we have an ethical thing against wiretapping. In fact, Sharpton had been cooperating with the U.S. Attorney's Office in Brooklyn as part of an investigation targeting Don King, according to a source involved with the probe. Now, federal agents ran him for a couple of months, during which time Sharpton did some recordings via his new home telephone. See how he was lying? They said he absolutely was recording people on that home phone. All right. He's acting like it was a hotline for people to report things to him. Yeah, please. Okay. But the nascent Department of Justice operation was abruptly shattered in the wake of the New York Newsday story. Okay. And that's when he got exposed. See, this man would never have fessed up to any of this. Okay. That's why he's not to be trusted, specifically by our community, if you ask the Queen. Okay. So anyway, with that all being said, but the nascent Department of Justice operation was abruptly shuttered, okay, in the wake of the New York Newsday story. The Brooklyn investigators were introduced to Al Sharpton in late 1987 by Joseph Spinelli, one of the Reverend's former FBI handlers. He had a whole handler. Are y'all listening? Yeah, I find it interesting. He had a whole handler. Okay, and one of the agents who initially secured his cooperation with the Bureau. While Spinelli had left the FBI for another government post, he still helped facilitate Sharpton's interaction with other investigators. Joe was shopping him around, one source called. Shopping him around. Y'all hear this, right? Are y'all a bit surprised? Because I am not. Absolutely am not. So the guy was shopping him around. Who's the next bidder? Okay. To get Al Sharpton and have him snitching on people. For example, in July of 1987, Spinelli called a federal prosecutor in Los Angeles and offered Sharpton's assistance with a matter the lawyer was handling. So he's snitching for everybody. Okay? They're just passing him around like a little cheap hoe. Okay? Like a little cheap 304. Now, the case involved Salvatore Pisello, a mobbed-up music industry figure who had just been indicted for tax evasion and whom Sharpton had previously accused of threatening his life. Now, referring to Sharpton, ex-prosecutor Marvin Rudnick said in an interview, I didn't know who he was when Spinelli called. In subsequent conversations with Rudnick, Sharpton provided information about Pisello and a related music industry matter that was being scrutinized by Justice Department investigators. Now, while Sharpton would not prove particularly helpful to Rudnick, the attorney clearly recalled his brief, unorthodox dealings with the New York activist, saying, I remember having to go to a payphone to take the call because he didn't want to be traced. And he started laughing. Ha! He started laughing. He said he had to go to a darn payphone because Al was so afraid the call was going to be traced. So why did Sharpton agree to become an FBI informant? And why was he willing to risk the dangers inherent in such cooperation? He thought he didn't have a choice, one Genovese squad agent recalled. In the course of an investigation being run by Spinelli and his partner, John Pritchard, Sharpton was secretly recorded in meetings with an FBI undercover agent posing as a wealthy illegal substance dealer seeking to promote boxing matches. And as previously reported, Colombo crime family captain Michael Francesi, who Sharpton enlisted. Now, you all should know Michael Francesi because he has a YouTube channel. Anyway, who knew Sharpton enlisted the activist's help in connecting with Don King. Francesi and Sharpton were later surreptitiously filmed during one meeting with the undercover, while Sharpton and Daniel Pagano, a Genovese soldier, were recorded at another sit-down. Pagano's father, Joseph, was a Genovese power deeply involved in the entertainment industry and who also managed the crime family's rackets in counties north of New York City. Now, during one meeting with Sharpton, the undercover agent offered to get him pure Coca-Cola at $35,000 a kilo. As the phony illegal substance kingpin spoke, Sharpton nodded his head and said, "I hear you." When the undercover promised Sharpton a 10% finder's fee in the if he could arrange the purchase of several kilos, the Reverend referred to an unnamed buyer and said, if he's got it, he'll do it much more than that. If he's gonna do it, he'll do it much more than that, he said. The FBI agent steered the conversation toward the possible procurement of Coca-Cola, according to sources, since investigators believe that Sharpton's acquaintance, Daniel Pagano, who was not present, was looking to consummate rug deals. Joseph Pagano, an East Harlem native who rose through a Genovese crew notorious for narcotics trafficking, spent nearly 7 years in federal prison, for illegal substance distribution, specifically the illegal substance that starts with an H. Okay, now while Sharpton did not explicitly offer to arrange the rug deal, some investigators thought his interaction with the undercover agent could be construed as a violation of federal conspiracy laws, though an actual prosecution, an ex-FBI agent acknowledged, would have been a reach. Agents decided to approach Sharpton in an attempt to flip the activist, who was then shy of his 30th birthday. Now, in light of Sharpton's relationship with Don King, FBI agents wanted his help in connection with the Bureau's 3-year-old boxing investigation, codenamed Crown Royal, and headed by Spinelli and Pritchard. Now, with that being said, the FBI agents confronted Sharpton with the undercover videos and warned him that he could face criminal charges as a result of the secret recordings. This is why he did it. I'm telling you, it was self-preservation, just like they said. Sitting there trying to act like he did it because somebody threatened his life. Please sit down somewhere with your lying self. So they told him they had these undercover videos and he could face criminal charges. Sharpton, of course, could have walked out and ran to King, Francesi, or Pagano and reported the FBI's approach and the fact that the rug dealer, Victor Quintano, was actually a federal informant. In subsequent denials that he had been flipped, Sharpton has contended that he stiffened in the face of the FBI's agents, meeting their bluff with bluster and bravado. Ha! Do y'all hear this? He denied it and acted as though he just got tough with him. Like, yeah, he stood 10 toes down, talking about bluff, bluster, and bravado. Oh, my Lord. Al Sharpton, if you have anything, those are not it. He claimed to have turned away Spinelli and company, daring them to indict me and prosecute. Ha! Really? But you were a whole informant? Okay. Sharpton has complained that the seasoned investigators were trying to sting me, entrap me, a young minister, In fact, Sharpton fell for the FBI ruse and agreed to cooperate, a far-reaching decision he made without input from a lawyer, according to sources. I think there was some fear of prosecution on his part, recalled a former federal agent. Well, of course it was, because even if they didn't have a rock-solid case, and likely they didn't have a rock-solid case because he nodded his head. When they asked him something, there was a nod of his head. He didn't verbally say something. At the end of the day, they felt like they may have some information, but may not have had enough. But the bottom line is they still went to him like they had enough information. Like, we can still throw the book at you, because that's what the police do. That's what the feds do, right? We know how that goes. And so out of his fear of prosecution, this is why he started snitching. Now, he can sit there and act like he stood 10 toes down and gave them the business and all the smoke and wouldn't fall for it. But you were a whole informant, sir. So that's not going to fly. Okay, that dog won't hunt. So anyway, with that all being said, now Sharpton claimed that he rebuffed the FBI agents who he added threatened to serve him with a subpoena to testify before a federal grand jury investigating King. Now, after being confronted by the Bureau, Sharpton said he consulted with an attorney whom he declined to identify. Following Bureau guidelines, agents formally opened a 137 informant file on Sharpton, a move that was approved by FBI supervisors, according to several sources. Okay, now agents anticipating using Sharpton in the Crown Royal case, focusing on King, but during initial debriefings of their new recruit, it became clear that his contacts in the music business were equally appealing. Sharpton had met James Brown in the mid-70s and became extremely close to the R&B superstar. He worked for and traveled with the performer, married one of Brown's backup singers, and wore the same processed hairdo as the entertainer. Now, did they really have to throw that in? Y'all hear this? Said he wore the same processed hairdo. Oh my goodness, but let me continue. So anyway, like Brown, Sharpton would sometimes even wear a cowboy hat atop his tribute conch. They're really going in and clowning him, throwing all the shade. This is hilarious. Now, it was first through executives at Spring Records, a small Manhattan-based label affiliated with Brown, that Sharpton, who worked for the firm's office, was introduced to various wise guys, including Francisi. Now, his circle of mob contacts would grow to include, among others, the Paganos, Carmine de Noa, an imposing Pagano associate known as Wazel, and Joseph Joe Buonanno, a Gambino crime family figure involved in record distribution and production. At one point before he was flipped, Sharpton participated in a mob scheme to create a business front that would seek a share of lucrative Con Edison. Now listen to this right here. At one point before he was flipped, okay, this is when he was still doing all this dirt, Sharpton participated in a mob scheme to create a business front that would seek a share of lucrative Con Edison set-asides intended for minority-owned businesses. Do you all hear this? Do you all hear this? Do you all hear this? So before he got busted on film and then became an informant, when he was out there doing dirt, I want y'all to pay attention. He was involved with the mob in a scheme to get money from that was supposed to go to Black minority business or to minority businesses, i.e. Black people. Of course, we're not the only minorities, but of course we know that was meant for Black people, okay, as well. Dirty dog. But anyway, with that all being said, that deal, which involved garbage collection contracts, cratered when the power company determined that Sharpton's silent partner was Genovese, Captain Matthew Matty the Horse, Ianello. Now, details of that's the only reason it didn't go through, because they probably didn't want ties to the mob. Okay, so details of the Con Ed plot emerged at a federal criminal trial of Ianello and his business partner, Benjamin Cohen. It was Cohen, who worked across the hall from Spring Records, who recruited Sharpton for the mob garbage gambits. Isn't that something? Isn't that something? Now, with that all being said, oh, honey, this is a whole lot. I might skip past some of this because it's a whole lot. With that I've been said, let's continue for a second. Okay, so anyway, go, because I'm telling you, I got all these receipts on him. Now, after his attempted detour into waste management, Sharpton returned his focus to the music industry, which, as he observed in his first book, is an extremely dirty endeavor because it's a cash business. And he continued to say music is a street business, and that's where organized crime, that's where organized crime is, on the street. Still, he noted that I wanted to learn more. Now, one of Sharpton's teachers was an ex-con named Robert Currington, a music producer with a questionable history. Now, this is a black man, okay, who was arrested in 2009. One of Sharpton's teachers was this person. They call him Robert Currington, a music producer. Currington, a standout running back at North Carolina Central University, played for several pro teams until injuries forced his retirement in 1969. He transitioned into music management and teamed with legendary WBLS DJ Frankie Crocker to promote concerts featuring R&B acts like Barry White, the Dramatics, and the OJs. At the time, Currington had a desk inside the Broadway office of Calla Records, a small soul label headed by Nats McCalla, a Morris Levy. Okay, now, in addition to his music pursuits, Currington also distributed illegal substances, specifically the one that starts with an H. Okay, the one that Frank Lucas from American Gangster was selling, that one, according to Drug Enforcement Administration records. Okay, Currington was twice indicted on federal narcotics trafficking charges. After being acquitted in a 1975 case, he was arrested again in 77 after agents found a kilo of the H illegal substance inside a briefcase in a cream-colored Thunderbird carrying Currington and pal Frank Townsend, according to DEA agents. Now, according to prosecution filings in the second case, federal agents had twice observed. Okay, I'm gonna skip past all this. There eventually was a mistrial where Currington pleaded guilty to a single count. After the mistrial, he pleaded guilty to a single count related to the receipt of 480 bars of manites, which traffickers use to cut their illegal substances, specifically the one that starts with an H. Okay, now in August of 1978, he was sentenced to 2 years in federal prison on the felony charge in order to serve 3 years of special parole until his release from custody. The manite, according to court and DEA records, had been delivered by an undercover agent to the Upper West Side apartment of Currington's girlfriend. And now the girlfriend, Currington, who was married with 2 daughters, was also dating Sylvia Roan after meeting the 25-year-old Buddha Records, where she worked as an assistant. As a DEA informant sought to arrange the manite delivery, he called Roan in an effort to locate Currington. The informant told Roan that Currington asked me to get something for him, and I contacted these people and I got it for him, and I'm sitting on it and holding it, according to a DEA transcript of the recorded conversation. Well, I think you should keep trying. That's what she said. She was not charged in the narcotics case. Okay, she would later become the music industry's most influential female executive. All right. So with that all being said, she previously headed the Elektra Entertainment Group and Universal Motown Records. They say that she also was the appointed president of Epic Records, whose artist roster includes Michael Jackson, Prince, Outkast, and Ozzy Osbourne. Okay, I'm going to skip past some of this, like I said. Okay, Sharpton told investigators that he thought Pagano felt indebted to him because he once helped broker a business meeting for Pagano with Muhammad Ali and representatives of the boxer, who was then retired. Sharpton had also met with Pagano at a National Association for Recording Merchandisers convention. Okay, now, skipping past all this. Okay, with that all being said, I'm going to the last page of this document. Okay, so with that all being said, like the Genovese squad, state OCTF agents believed that listening devices would produce incriminating evidence against the Paganos and members of their Genovese crew. According to investigators with both task forces, a close relationship existed between the groups, so much so that several Genovese squad members ended up working for the state task force, which was headquartered in Westchester County, a Pagano stronghold. Now, when the state OCTF sought court approval in January of 1986 to place a listening device in Joseph Picano's Rockland County home, they cited a confidential FBI source who told his handlers that the mafiosos conducted business in the basement of the Muncie house. Now, in interviews, Genovese Squad and state OCTF investigators identified, guess who? Sharpton, that too, as the informant who provided a first-hand description of Pagano's residence. All right. Low down and dirty. Now, according to Sharpton's most recent book, following the Victory Tour, King decided that I should become a major concert promoter, working alongside him to become the music industry, or to come into the music industry, to become to the music industry what he was to the boxing world. Now, Sharpton, who formed a Georgia-based company, Hitbound Inc., to handle music promotions, wrote that he was also being urged by Michael Jackson and James Brown to enter the concert business. But Sharpton declared he opted for the more uncertain path of civil rights activism, okay, because the prospect of big stacks of dollars that could be very helpful in raising his family. That's what he felt. The Sharpton's unique brand of activism included working with Currington to line up the endorsements of several prominent Black ministers for Senator Al D'Amato, the conservative Republican incumbent, then being challenged in the 1986 general election by liberal Democrat Mark Green. The ministers backing D'Amato included Bishop Frederick Douglass Washington, whom Sharpton has described as one of his spiritual mentors. The endorsements came several months after the New Republic reported that D'Amato had privately referred to the residents of public housing projects as animals. Do y'all hear that? Called them animals. Very interesting. The endorsements came several months after. Let me read this again to make sure I'm reading this right. So he basically endorsed this Republican, Al D'Amato, Senator Al D'Amato, the conservative Republican incumbent, then being challenged in the 1986 general election by liberal Democrat Mark Green. The ministers backing D'Amato included Bishop Frederick Douglass Washington, whom Sharpton has described as one of his spiritual mentors. The endorsements came several days after the New Republic reported that D'Amato had privately referred to the residents of public housing projects as animals. Do y'all hear that? This is who he was endorsing, somebody who called Black people animals. Now, in return for these endorsements, D'Amato was very easily reelected. So he steered a $500,000 federal grant to Currington and Sharpton for the establishment of an anti-rug program in Brooklyn. Do y'all hear that? So Sharpton sold out his own people. I mean, he was willing to endorse somebody who literally, Perplex said, "You read it right, Queen. I know, right? But I didn't want to lie on him." I said, "Hold on now." Because mind you, beloveds, I haven't read all of these documents, all of this document. I haven't read all of this. I've just had it in my arsenal. The main one I was focused on was the one about Assata. But honey, Al Sharpton is low down and nefarious. So he got paid for it. Okay, so he was a paid informant, allegedly. Now, at D'Amato's request, Sharpton also arranged for Coretta Scott King to make a surprise appearance at the August 1988 Republican National Convention in New Orleans, according to a law enforcement official. Martin Luther King Jr.'s widow, who Sharpton has called my mentor, sat in Vice President George Bush's box, where she was greeted with a kiss by Barbara Bush. Sharpton is low down and dirty. Now, he sat up here and knew this man did all this stuff. This stuff came out after he endorsed this man, and then he even arranged for Coretta Scott King to do a surprise appearance to help this man out at the Republican National Convention. Okay, continue. Sharpton apparently forgot about the 6 figures that D'Amato handed when he was penning his latest book. Okay, because he didn't say nothing about all that. When Sharpton wrote in his book, he didn't say a darn thing about that man paying them 6 figures. That's what he didn't do. Okay, because he's a liar and a hypocrite, period. Now, claiming that his public positions were free, more lies, were free of unseemly calculations. He said, I never asked for public funding for anything, so there would be no confusion about my motives. That's what he said. This man is nothing but a low down, dirty, lying dog. Now, by the time Sharpton's uncertain path led him to join the Tawana Brawley team in mid-December of 1987, when he demanded the arrest of the racial people who were terrorizing the state, his 4-year-long cooperation with law enforcement agencies had almost run its course. Now, because they didn't have any more use for him at this point, likely. Now, it had been 5 months since ex-FBI agent Joe Spinelli steered him to the Los Angeles federal prosecutor, who had to position himself at a payphone when Sharpton was ready to drop a dime. And Sharpton's work on behalf of the Brooklyn U.S. Attorney's Office also at Spinelli's urging, because remember, Spinelli was his handler. So Spinelli was renting him out, pimping him out, okay? He was not only an informant, he was also a HOE. I'm sorry, a 304. With that all being said, it was also at Spinelli's urging and was snuffed out in its infancy in January of 1988. But while the Brawley affair left Sharpton radioactive for law enforcement, the same could not be said of his underworld contacts. So beginning in late 1987 and carrying through the following year, Sharpton and Currington worked together on behalf of Sugar Hill Records to broker a multi-million-dollar deal with MCA Records in Los Angeles. Now, in an interview, Currington valued the contract at $6.5 million, adding that he and Sharpton stood to split. Getting paid. I want y'all to pay attention. They stood to split a hefty 6-figure fee for arranging the deal with MCA chairman Irving Azoff. Sugar Hill was founded by Joe Robinson, a music industry veteran who strapped for cash, took money from Morris Levi in return for a piece of the fledgling rap and R&B label. Like Levi and many of his peers in the rough and tumble record business, Robinson was unburdened by business ethics. He was as greasy as a pork chop. That's what Currington said, and so was Al. Okay, so was Al with his big butt back then. He was looking like a pork chop back then. Okay, and eating plenty of them. All right, allegedly. Now, the Sugar Hill MCA deal eventually collapsed amid claims that Robinson had engaged in various financial malfactions. Okay, now, which of course did not relieve the Sugar Hill boss of his financial obligation to Currington and Sharpton. At least that's how the duo saw it. They're like, honey, look, it don't even matter. Okay, your stuff is falling through. You still owe us that cash that you promised. So where's that $6.5 million? Because we're going to need that real quick. And small unmarked bills, if you please. Now, enveloped in debt and hurting for cash, Robinson nonetheless began getting a stream of unannounced visitors at Sugar Hill's Inglewood, New Jersey studio, demanding that he pay Sharpton and Currington. Now they done sent goons to the man. Do y'all hear this? A whole reverend and civil rights activist, no less, sending goons to this man, allegedly, because who were these people sent by, if not Currington and Sharpton? Okay, coming and telling them and threatening this man, so you better cough up that dough. All right. So anyway, they came to the man's house unannounced. Okay, visiting, talking about he better, and demanded that he pay Sharpton and Currington. On one occasion, Joe Buono showed up with Genovese associate Mike Milano and confronted Robinson, who called a local cop to complain that he was being muscled by these men. Edward Stempinski, then an Inglewood Police Department detective, recalled catching Buono and Milano at Sugar Hill, remarking that the duo didn't look like they should be going to a rapper studio. I bet they did. Now, during a trip to Inglewood, Currington was busted after punching one of the Robinson sons. Stempinski, now retired, said that it was a post-arrest interview. Currington identified himself as vice president of Sharpton's National Youth Movement. Sharpton, who was then living in Inglewood with his wife and two daughters, also took part in the debt collection effort. Visiting, no, he didn't. Y'all hear this? Not Sharpton going to talk trash about the coins. Okay, he also took part in the debt collection effort, visiting Sugar Hill to Hector Robinson about payment and Stempinski. Referring to Joe Robinson, Currington admitted in an interview to threatening the Sugar Hill boss over the money that was owed to him in Sharpton, adding that he warned Robinson that he would burn down Sugar Hill's headquarters if they were not paid. We're gonna burn this mother sucker down if we don't get our cash. All right, don't make me and Al have to come back down here. Okay, Currington also admitted that he once went to Sugar Hill intending to F him up. Yeah, he said he was going to F up Robinson, though he did not arrive solo. Currington said he was accompanied to the studio by Buono, Wazel, Denoya, and Daniel Pagano. Now, those are Sharpton's friends. So how did this man get to them? Because Sharpton had to have introduced them, because these were the people that Sharpton was working with, okay, getting information on. So in an interview in his Manhattan apartment, Denoa said that he could not recall traveling to the Sugar Hill studios to lean on Robinson. Now 88, time and illness have stripped the hulking former bookmaker of his menace, though not his affection for Sharpton and Joseph Pagano, a close friend since their youth in East Harlem. Denoa called Sharpton a really dear friend of mine, saying that they met when Sharpton handled music promotions. He recalled that Sharpton became very close to his boyhood friend, adding that the activist loved Joe Pagano. Stempinski, who shared details of the hoodlum caravan going westbound over the George Washington Bridge with several organized crime investigators, was surprised to discover that Sharpton had apparently learned of law enforcement's monitoring of the Sugar Hill matter. The detective arrived at work one day to find a remarkable 2-page letter had been mailed to him by Sharpton, who was then 8 months into his defense of Tawana Brawley. Stempinski, who had never met or spoken with the activist, concluded that Sharpton sent out of the blue missive to him at the direction of Currington, whom Stempinski had been cultivating as a source. Now, August of 1988, correspondence stated that Sharpton and Currington had been retained as consultants by Robinson, who thought he was being unduly and unfairly treated for racial reasons by MCA. The pair was hired, according to Sharpton, due to their MCA contacts and standing up in the Black community. Sharpton then recounted Currington's immersion in the Sugar Hill MCA deal, a diligence which came at the expense of other private business and community efforts with which the duo was involved. That would probably be their rug dealing. Now, after noting that Robinson had leveled accusations of abuse against Currington, Sharpton dismissed those claims as false, stating that the Sugar Hill owner fabricated the allegations with the intent of not meeting his obligations to me or Mr. Currington. Sharpton declared that he would not tolerate our movement of friends, co-workers, and associates to be prostituted and misused in this manner. Didn't I tell y'all that he was a 304? See, he admits it. Didn't I tell y'all he was a 304? Okay, please pay attention. All right. He said he wasn't going to continue to do that. Now, Sharpton's letter to the Inglewood detective concluded with a promise that I can assure you I am prepared to move legally and publicly, okay, to get my money. Mr. Currington's money, and the movement's money. I hope these activities will be resolved soon. Sharpton's aggressive preemptive strike made his position clear. He and Currington were victims of Robinson's perfidy. And if anyone doubted that, they should prepare to endure the raucous Brawley-type protest for which Sharpton was becoming notorious. Did y'all hear this? So what do you all think so far? What do you all think so far about Mr. Sharpton? This is all so egregious at the end of the day. But let me continue. So anyway, goes on to say, as for the menacing guys showing up at Sugar Hill Studio, well, Sharpton's letter did not address the sticky subject of all those Italian-American debt collectors, a group that included Buonanno and Mafioso, who years earlier had been directly or secretly taped by Al Sharpton, aka CI-7. See, I told y'all, those are the people he was working with. Now, Sharpton told sources that he could not recall writing to the New Jersey detective Oh, he didn't remember. Convenient amnesia. Okay, he didn't remember writing to him. But the man said he had a whole letter, Al. Please sit down. Now, asked why an assortment of wise guys would have been pressuring Robinson to pay a debt owed to him and Currington, Sharpton replied saying, "What makes you think I knew about that?" Ha! Y'all hear this? He said, "What makes y'all think I knew about that?" That damn Al Sharpton, honey, he's going to deny. Okay, deny. So he's saying, basically, he didn't know anything about those people coming and knocking on those people's door and announcing, talking about, you better pay Al and Currington. If you know what's good, Al Sharpton, please sit down. You probably sent those people. But now let's get into how he knew, or how he was dealing with Jimmy Henchman, a.k.a. James Rosemond. Now, that being said, 2 years before signing with MSNBC in 2011, Al Sharpton traveled to Los Angeles to try and sell a daytime TV show that would have starred him in a Judge Judy type role. His partner in the Judge Sharpton endeavor was James Rosemond, a music industry executive who paid airfare, hotel, and other expenses related to the proposal, which did not ultimately secure a Hollywood green light. So he wanted to have a judge show, and he got Jimmy Henchman to help him in that. Now, like many of Sharpton's prior business acquaintances, pay attention right there, like many of Sharpton's prior business acquaintances, Rosemond too had a nickname, Jimmy Henchman. Now, at the time of the Judge Sharpton pitch, Rosemond, who managed hip-hop artists, already possessed a lengthy rap sheet and had served nearly 7 years in prison for various weapons and narcotics convictions. He also happened to head a large bi-coastal Coca-Cola trafficking ring. The notorious rug kingpin is now serving life in prison for that criminal operation, proceeds from which Rosemond used to cover Judge Sharpton's cost. And it didn't even come to fruition. But he's out here taking money with blood on it. Okay? He's out here taking blood money, y'all. This is what Al Sharpton did. Al Sharpton is a dirty devil. He is a low-down dirty devil. Okay? Ha! Songwriter Sonny called him Al Sharp Tony Montana. Okay? This is all crazy. Jeremel said Al Sharpton, nefarious snake raccoon. Okay? I absolutely agree. So anyway, in recent months, as Sharpton has been promoting his latest book, interviewers have not bothered to question. Now listen to this. Interviewers, as he was promoting his book, interviewers have not bothered to ask about Rosemond or any of the other gangsters to whom the civil rights leader has been linked. You know why? Because of his ties to people like Oprah. Okay, instead, Oprah Winfrey, Wendy Williams, Matt Lauer, and others have focused on Sharpton's trim figure, his growing political influence, and Brawley, the albatross that hangs around his neck like Flavor Flav's clock. Viewers of these Q&A sessions learned that daily cardio workouts and a healthy diet, no meat, 2 pieces of whole toast for breakfast, and no food after 6 p.m. can help a guy shed 54.8% of his body weight. Sharpton, you know you went and got a lap band surgery, in my opinion, but let me continue. Now, he probably did modify his diet as well, but I think he definitely went and got that surgery. But that's all they wanted to talk about. They didn't want to bring up his checkered past. Okay. They don't want to bring up his checkered past. You know why? Because they don't want to make him look bad to the rest of us. So when he was last profiled on 60 Minutes, Sharpton stated he stately in his tailored suits, was filmed inside the private Manhattan cigar club that he frequents, as well as at a Sunday church pulpit, saying, "I like folk that been knocked down and shamed and disgraced, and somehow God picked them up and cleaned them off and brought them back." That's what he told a cheering congregation. Did he tell the congregation he was talking about his darn self? Did he tell them that? I bet he didn't. Near the conclusion of the 12-minute piece, correspondent Leslie Stahl introduced investigative reporter Wayne Barrett, who began covering Sharpton's exploits more than 30 years earlier. When the activist was involved in Brooklyn political campaigns, Sharpton, Barrett said, was in the civil rights business. I don't think he's a civil rights leader. That's what he said. And no lies detected. He said Sharpton was in the civil rights business. I don't think he's a civil rights leader. Now, Barrett then wondered, considering Sharpton's tawdry history. He said, would anybody else be able to transcend that and be this larger than life figure. Okay, he has. That's what he said about Al. He has. And then someone says, only because we let him. I want y'all to pay attention. Barrett said, only because we let him. That is the hallmark signs of a raccoon. Let me remind you all of something before I get into the part about Assata. You see, when Barrett said only because we let him, he's letting Sharpton know you only where you are because we let you get there. If you remember when I told you all about that scene from the movie Trick Baby, remember the scene I keep telling you all about with the white folks sitting at the table, the wealthy white people, the elites, and they got the black butler and maid serving them, and they're sitting there talking about how they're going to let a few black people become wealthy and allow them to obtain wealth and have them think that they have a seat at the table with them, but they're going to use those people against the rest of us. And that is Al Sharpton. That's why the man said he thinks that he is in the civil rights business, but he is not a civil rights leader. You see, there is a difference. Okay, I want y'all to pay attention. Al Sharpton has always been low down and nefarious, as far as I'm concerned. Now let's get into it because I absolutely believe it all. Okay, I absolutely believe it all. Like stuff, everyone, please like and share. Thank you in advance. Now let's talk about it. Now, this information was revealed on a Friday, October the 21st of 1988. The Reverend Al Sharpton, who has worked as a federal informant, tried to set up a meeting with Black fugitive radical Joanne Chesimard in 1983. Now, why did I tell y'all to pay attention to that date when I told y'all when he first started working with the feds? It was what year was it? Do you all remember? Do you all remember what year it was? I told y'all to pay attention to the date and pay attention to the briefcase because it's going to come back around later. Al Sharpton started working for the feds allegedly in 1983, according to my documentation. And he's never denied that. Okay, he's never denied that. Okay. Nicole said, dissect them, Queen Cook. Thank you, beloved. I sure will. We're frying up pork chop bobblehead Al Sharpton today. So with that all being said, he immediately, if this is to be believed, and I believe it, that would mean that he immediately went after Assata Shakur. But let's continue. So, and this is, let me read that again. The Reverend Al Sharpton, who has worked as a federal informant, tried to set up a meeting with Black fugitive radical Joanne Chesimard in 1983, according to activists, not one, but activists, plural, who said they were approached by Sharpton. The Black activists say they feared Sharpton was trying to deliver Chesimard to the arms of federal agents and said they had no proof. Now, on law enforcement, one law enforcement source who declined to be identified but has detailed knowledge of Sharpton's activities as an FBI informant said this week that Sharpton was working as an informant at the time that he sought to meet Chesimard. So, of course, they weren't going to trust him. And they already knew you ain't never in your life came to us and wanted to have nothing to do with Assata Shakur. Okay, because for those of you who don't know, that's her government name. Okay. But with that all being said, he had never previously ever come to them trying to act as though he wanted to help her, Joanne Chesimard, aka Assata Shakur. So with that all being said, they were quite very suspicious, okay, and rightfully so. So anyway, goes on to say they knew about his FBI informant activities, and the source said that one of Sharpton's assignments was to try to lead agents to Chesimard, okay, aka Assata Shakur, who escaped from prison in 1979 after being convicted in the killing of a New Jersey state trooper. They say it wasn't a big, massive operation. It was just a small shot, an everyday deal, the source says. I would equate it with setting up 10 traps a day trying to catch a fox. He said Sharpton was not a major participant in the search for her, okay, but a top FBI official said that Sharpton And here's the thing. Now, of course, FBI officials are not going to verify this. They said a sharp FBI official said Sharpton was not used to lure Shakur into a trap. This is the first I'm hearing of it. Okay, that's what the FBI Assistant Deputy Director Kenneth Walton, who led the Shakur investigation, said at the time. Sharpton flatly denied trying to make contact with Shakur. Now, Newsday reported in January that beginning in 1983, Sharpton secretly supplied federal law enforcement agencies with information on Boxer Don King and reputed organized crime figures and Black leaders and elected officials. So they knew that he'd already gone after other Black leaders. And so that's also why they didn't trust him. And in a 2-hour interview, Sharpton admitted to Newsday that he had assisted the government in drug and organized crime cases. He said he also accompanied undercover federal agents wearing body recorders to meetings with various subjects of federal investigations. He said he had allowed the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of New York to install a taped telephone in his Brooklyn home. Now, Sharpton has insisted that he has never turned over information on Black radicals or Don King. Lies. I don't believe him. Of course, he doesn't want the Black community to know that he did dirt to Black people. That's why he boldly will say that he did it to the mafia, because he knows we don't care about that. Now, this week, Sharpton denied assertions by Ahmed Abafemi. Now, if you don't know who Ahmed Abafemi is, this is a longtime activist, okay, as well as Kwame Brathwaite, an activist and photographer who says Sharpton asked him to set up an encounter with Obafemi. Both men say that Obafemi acted as the intermediary in the failed discussions with Sharpton to reach Shakur. Sharpton called the men liars and said they were possibly police agents. Now you know he probably did it, because that's the first thing the feds do. If somebody's a confidential informant and they get called out, what's the first thing they do? They start calling everybody else feds or saying that they're the agents. It's just like when I said that when we went to the Diddy trial and I said I believe Tisa Tales was paid by the feds to spew those lies on Diddy, because that's what an official literally told us. Okay, then all of a sudden, when that comes out, Tisa Tales all of a sudden starts lying, saying that we got paid by Diddy's people. Paid for what? What could they possibly pay us for? To get Diddy off trial? To get him acquitted? What could we do? Paint a narrative after everybody's already seen the Cassie video? But she immediately tried to flip the script and start saying that other people were getting paid by Diddy's team. Now, she never said that before, okay? Only when I called her out. Now, with that all being said, the same applies to Sharpton, okay? Now, all of a sudden, he wants to say that he thinks they are working for the police as agents. Very interesting. So anyway, goes on to say he charged that they are part of an element in the Black community that has lost out and that will fabricate any story out of jealousy because they have no following. That's the same thing Tisa says too. That's the same thing she says too. And I want you to pay attention. See, this is all the hallmark talking points of somebody who's absolutely guilty of what they're being accused. Okay, it's called deflection and projection. All right. Now, Obafemi, the national organizer of the New African People's Organization, says Sharpton met with him in Manhattan at least 4 times in 1983. Over a period of 2 months, he said that Sharpton offered to donate money to help Black revolutionaries running from the law, and that Sharpton was particularly interested in setting up a meeting with Shakur, once referred to as the soul of the Black Liberation Army. Sharpton told Obafemi that he was representing 2 former Black Panthers who wanted to see Shakur, according to Obafemi. The ex-Panthers were supposedly trying to make useful contacts in case they had to flee the country someday. That's what he told Obafemi. Lies. The first discussion was that they were close to her. Now Sharpton said none of this happened. Sharpton said these men are lying and jealous and hating and mad and all of that. You think somebody's going to go to this extent? This sounds very, this is like a whole lot of information, basically. Somebody went through all this, Al Sharpton, because they were hating on you. Sit down somewhere, bobblehead. Okay, so anyway, it goes on to say The first discussion was that they were close to her, that they had been in the Black Panther Party with her, and that they wanted to talk to her, Obafemi said. I wanted to find out who they were, but he said they really didn't want to be known. How would he think and be foolish enough to, to even think that this man is going to give him any information and details on Assata Shakur, who's all the way over here in hiding, to some people that don't even want to say who they were? That's how you know he's full of crap. Because real Black Panthers, if they really wanted some help or wanted to know where Assata was or to speak to her, whatever, they would have definitely told who they were. How else would Assata know to trust them or anybody else in between? Like Obafemi. So anyway, said they really didn't want to be known. Shakur was once a member of the Black Panther Party, but went underground around 1971 because she said she believed the group was being infiltrated by city and local federal law enforcement officers. Now, the 1983 deal fell through at a final meeting when Sharpton insisted that that money would be donated only if the two former Panthers could meet Shakur. Failing that, Obafemi said Sharpton was interested in making any kind of contact with her or with any of her close associates, also on the run from the law. This got feds written all over it. This sounds like some stuff DJ Vlad will be asking somebody on his channel. Do you know where Assata Shakur is? Boosie, when's the last time you spoke with Assata Shakur? Yeah, I hear she's over there in Cuba. You know where she's staying at? No, Vlad, I don't know nothing about Assata Shakur. What about some of her close associates? I know you know some people's last names are Shakur. What about Queen Ahmadiyya Shakur? You ever seen her? She's on YouTube. Hey, this sounds just like Vlad. Okay? I'm sorry, but please sit down. Okay, wait, don't say it exactly, Queen. Okay? Who does he think he is fooling, Al? Your goose is cooked. But let me continue. How did he keep this stuff under a wrap all these decades? Well, because the same people that he was working for and as a whole informant, they kept all of this under a wrap, okay, for him. And then he had people like Michelle and Barack and Oprah, okay, Wendy Williams, Matt Lauer, all of these people, these other famous celebrity people and everything, all vouching for him, even mayors like Bill de Blasio. But anyway, let's continue. So anywho, he goes on to say that he was interested in making contact of any kind. That's how you know he was desperate. Okay, you can't let me meet Asfini. You can't let me meet Assata. Okay, how about does she have a bodyguard, a cook, a driver? Just desperate at this point. Okay, or any of her associates on the run from the law. Why in the hell would people on the run from the law want to meet up with you? Naturally, I never got back to him, said Obafemi, whose organization believes that Blacks should have their own country within the United States and that they have the right to fight for it. I agree. Now, obviously, we had to feel that a definite possibility existed that he was working for the government, and we would have felt that way about him or anybody else who approached us in that manner, because it was too damn obvious. Okay, Chokwe Lumumba, an attorney and chairman of the New Africa People's Organization, said it. Lumumba had been informed in 1983 by Obafemi about Sharpton's proposal. The attorney said his organization was more interested in getting information about Sharpton's motives, okay, than in receiving money from him. Like, we don't want your money. We want to know your real motives. See, Al Sharpton, he thinks just like the people he was dealing with thinks. He's thinking, okay, these Black folk, I just throw some money at them. They'll just go ahead and give it up. No. That's not what real revolutionaries do. Real revolutionaries give 0 F's about making money. Okay, that's why I tell y'all all the time. I give 0 F's, okay, about YouTube monetization, YouTube dollars. If they give it to me, fine. If they don't, oh well. But I'm still going to be on here talking my talk for my people at the end of the day. People who are money hungry, they'll never be having these conversations with you. But let me continue. So with that all being said, goes on to say, he thought he was so slick. I want y'all to pay attention. So anyway, he said we were more concerned about getting information on Sharpton's motives than in receiving money from him. I can't say that we were able to make any definite conclusions about whether Sharpton was acting as an agent for the government, Lumumba says. But they definitely felt like he was, and specifically because of the way he came at them. Okay, both Lumumba and Obafemi denied knowing where Shakur was at the time. They didn't tell his ace nothing. All right. We don't know where she's at. What you talking about? Assata who? Okay. Sharpton first broached his interest in Shakur during a chance encounter with Brathwaite, a black nationalist. Okay. Brathwaite says, I know I'm saying this man's name wrong. Hold on, beloveds. Like up, everyone, please like and share. How long are we in here? Okay, so we in for an hour and 37. I'm gonna wrap this up because I told y'all I have to come back. I have to come back with this next video. Hold on 1 second. Okay, it's Braithwaite's. Okay. So anyway, I was close at least. But anyway, goes on to say that Braithwaite said he happened to run into Sharpton one day in Midtown, but he could not remember the month. Already acquainted with each other from entertainment circles, the two men started talking, and Sharpton said he wanted to make a donation to Assata. Here he is bringing it up again, like he just literally wouldn't take no for an answer. Okay. A day or two later, Braithwaite told Obafemi about the offer. I told him to watch out. Braithwaite says, I knew that authorities were trying to find out where Assata Shakur, where she was, and that they were trying to get close to somebody who was close to her. And then I just knew that he's always been a hustler. Do y'all hear that? He said, I just knew that he'd always been a hustler. Now, last year, Newsday disclosed that Shakur was given political asylum in Cuba and was living there with her daughter, now 14 years old. She is probably the most sought after of the 1970s radicals linked to bank robberies and police killings over a 10-year span. The specific amount of the contribution Sharpton said he was prepared to make in 1983 on behalf of the ex-Panthers was not discussed, okay, according to Obafemi. But Sharpton said the prospective contributors gained the money by ripping off the system. Okay, that's what Obafemi recalled. So Sharpton told him, now I want you to listen to this. Let me read that again, because Obafemi said that Sharpton had said the prospective contributors gained the money by ripping off the system. Now, you know, he sound crazy. Now, the reason he would say something like that is because he thinks that they'll be down with that. Oh, yeah, he got the money from the man. Yeah, they ripped off the system, bro. You know what I'm saying? You can hear him now. Okay, with all that jive talk he was probably doing back there with that boo font. Sit down somewhere. Then he said, we got a queen double dip. Happy am I. Thank you, beloved. Isn't that crazy? Trying to tell them that the money was taken from the system. So I guess he thought they were going to just be all down for it. These people were smarter than him, and he thought he was so smart. See, that's the thing. These raccoons always think they're smarter than the rest of us. Okay, that's what they always think. They always think that they're so much smarter than the rest of us. And that's usually because they're usually doing a whole lot better than the rest of us. Okay, and money-wise, financial-wise. And that's because they sell the people out and they get paid for doing so. They get favorably compensated for that. Okay? They get compensated for that. All right. So, anywho, just like Tisa getting compensated by the feds allegedly to sell out Diddy and the truth. We don't even talk about selling out Diddy, but specifically to sell out the truth. Okay. But let me continue. Now, with that all being said, oh my goodness, Al Sharpton is so nefarious. I am really. So anyway, he goes on to say that at least 2 of the meetings occurred in a luxurious apartment at 30 Lincoln Plaza near Lincoln Center. That was the building where, according to a law enforcement source and a report published in the February 2nd, 1988 edition of the Village Voice, a federal agent using the name Victor Quintana, yeah, that's it. Quintana set up an apartment in 1983 or earlier to lure boxing world denizens suspected of illegal activity. Now, Quintana in that year ensnared Sharpton into working for the FBI. Okay. New York Newsday reported that back in January during the time. Now, the Village Voice article reported that apartment was on the 29th floor, but Obafemi could not recall the floor on which he had his rendezvous with Sharpton. Sharpton lives in Brooklyn, and Obafemi said he did not explain why Sharpton had access to the apartment. He made me think it was his. See how he was lying? He had this man thinking that was his apartment. He said, I was saying to myself, what kind of money must they have to have a spot in here? He had the keys and everything. Sharpton denied this week ever being in the building. Y'all know this man is not lying on Al Sharpton. Y'all know this man is not making this up. Let me tell y'all something. Here's why I really believe that he did it. Because for one, if Sharpton had literally said, if he had just admitted that he did meet up with them, that he did talk to them or whatever, okay, that's one thing. But the fact that he sit up here denying all of this, I'm not going for it that these men are lying on him, because what's their motive? What would be their motive of lying on you, Al Sharpton? Everybody already knew back then at the time that you were a whole informant. At least the people in the inner circles where you were doing your little dirt knew. So what would be the motive for this man Obafemi to lie on you? Okay, but let me continue. So anyway, with that all being said, he denied ever even being in the building. Obafemi said that up until 1983, he knew Sharpton only as the head of a youth organization, the National Youth Movement, and said someone with vague connections in the entertainment world. Obafemi is the ex-husband of Nihanda Obafemi, once known as Sherry Laverne Dalton, who is still wanted by the federal government in connection with the notorious Brinks robbery, which took place 7 years ago. At the time of this publication. She is allegedly connected to the group of black and white revolutionaries convicted in the Brinks heist. A guard and 2 police officers were killed in that incident, which took place upstate near Nyack. Now, in 1983, Obafemi was busy trying to gain support in the black community for the people arrested in the Brinks case. Now, in October of that year, several blacks and whites were convicted in that robbery and in the highly planned breakout of Shakur from prison in 1979. Okay, so you know what? For those of you who have memberships to the channel, you know we do true crimes today. So I might talk about that Brink heist. Put a 1 in the chat if you want me to talk about this Brink heist, where these black and white revolutionaries supposedly robbed this truck or whatever. Okay, that's right, Claudia said you can't make this stuff up. Okay. So with that all being said, in 1983, Obafemi was busy trying to gain support in the black community for the people arrested in the Brinks case. In October of that year, several blacks and whites were convicted in that robbery and in the highly planned breakout of Shakur from prison in 1979. The law enforcement source implicating Sharpton in the hunt for Assata Shakur said that Sharpton was also secondarily, listen to this, the law enforcement source implicating Sharpton. Now, I want you to pay attention. This is a law enforcement source. We're no longer just talking about Obafemi, okay? We're no longer just talking about Obafemi and his friend. They say the law enforcement source implicating Sharpton in the hunt for Assata Shakur said that Sharpton was also secondarily trying to help agents get other fugitives, such as and especially Mutulu Shakur, who was still on the run at the time. Mutulu Shakur was later apprehended and convicted in connection with the Brinks robbery and the escape of Assata Shakur. Isn't that something? Isn't that something? And so, you know, this story is very salacious. It's very salacious and intriguing. And that's pretty much the end of it. That's pretty much the end of it right there. So not only did he try to help bring down Assata allegedly, but also, I want y'all to pay attention, but also Dr. Mutulu Shakur. Okay, and here's another thing. You know, Al Sharpton never really was crazy about the Black Panther Party. He never was really crazy about them. That's for number one. Because he felt like, he said that one of his mentors, Bishop somebody, I remember this, reading this years ago, he had basically said that one of his mentors, some bishop, had told him to steer clear of those type of you know, political activists or what have you, and so he said he chose to stick to Dr. King's nonviolence, his nonviolence, you know, approach. But the thing I find interesting is this: You want to talk about Dr. King's nonviolent approach. You want to act as though real revolutionaries, i.e. the Black Panthers and the Black Liberation Party, are nefarious because they don't stick to nonviolence, okay? But are you saying that they were violence? Because they were not violent, okay? Now, they would defend themselves, but here's the thing. I find it interesting that he had a problem with them, but not with those mobsters. We know what mobsters do, chop off heads, chop up body parts. That's why they were always involved in waste management. That's a good way to get rid of the evidence when you kill somebody. Okay, known for tying concrete cinder blocks to people's feet and throwing them into the ocean, sending you a newspaper on your front doorstep and you unfold it to find a dead mackerel, which is a sign to let you know it's a threat and you're going to be sleeping with the fishes. Okay, I'm just saying he didn't have a problem with them, but you had a problem with the Black Panther Party. Like, sit down somewhere. Okay, I find it all so interesting, don't y'all? And if I'm not mistaken, I believe Obafemi was like Ludacris manager or something. Hold on, beloveds. Yeah, he was Ludacris's manager. His name, they also call him Shaka Zulu. And he had some murder charges recently at the shooting of a 23-year-old during a fight in Buckhead back in 2022 here in Atlanta. That was self-defense. I remember that. So anyway, honey, I definitely believe them more so than I believe Al Sharpton. Okay, and then at the very end, what did they say? A law enforcement personnel also implicated Al Sharpton in helping them with the search for Assata Shakur, and not only her, Matulu Shakur. Okay, I find it all nefarious, don't y'all? Don't y'all? Okay. Thank you, Nicole, beloved, for your contribution to the channel. Peace, love, and blessings. I appreciate you. Okay, I'm gonna read you all this article about Ludacris's manager, Shaka Zulu, aka Ahmed Obafemi, the one that exposed Al Sharpton, killed a man in self-defense, according to prosecutors. Like I said, this was in November of 2020. Well, actually, it was in 2022, but this publication is from November of 2023. Okay, murder charges against Ludacris' longtime manager Shaka Zulu have been dropped. Shaka Zulu, whose real name is Ahmed Obafemi, was accused of shooting and killing a 23-year-old in a fight back in Buckhead in 2022. And here's a picture of Obafemi, aka Shaka Zulu, with Ludacris. And just to let you know, that's what I'm talking about. He wants to act like these people are violent. They're only violent when provoked, okay? When they're defending themselves. That's him right there. Shout out to Obafemi, okay, for exposing nefarious Al Sharpton. Low down, dirty self. Can y'all believe it? So anyway, with that all being said, I hope you all enjoyed this broadcast. Anybody else y'all want the queen to expose? Anybody else y'all want me to expose? Honey, send me an email and let me know. That all being said, I want to thank you all for tuning in. Make sure you tune back in later, because guess what, y'all? Here's what we're going to do. We're going to have True Crime Sundays on this channel, and for the members only. For the members only, we're going to talk about that Brinks heist. And then for you guys, I have some breaking news, some information, and it is about a crime. So that's what we're going to talk about, okay? That's what we're going to talk about. So I'm going to come back at around, I was going to come right back, but I think I'll probably come back at around 5 o'clock. Okay, I got a couple of things I need to do, and I need to fix me some lunch or something. Y'all not gonna have me out here starving again like y'all did the other day. But yeah, so I'll come back at around 5 and we're gonna talk about it. Oh, and by the way, there was a shooting at Morehouse the other day. Isn't that interesting? Now, I've never heard of a mass shooting. I literally said this last week. Never heard of a mass shooting at an HBCU. But they had what they're calling a mass shooting at an HBCU. I'm going to tell you like this. From what I read, doesn't sound like what I'd call a mass shooting. It sounds like some idiots getting into a fight and shooting. But here's what I want you to pay attention to. They want to say it's a mass shooting, in my opinion, because there's never been a mass shooting at an HBCU. Okay? And the people that were involved, I don't believe, attend the college. Okay, so with that, it was at a football game. We're going to talk about all that later, but I've got something juicy to tell y'all, and I think y'all are really going to be interested. Okay, so with that all being said, everyone please like, share, subscribe to the channel, and if you have not been receiving notifications, please do your due diligence and make sure that you check to make sure you're still subscribed. And also, if you missed yesterday's broadcast, please go back and check that out. Okay, that was really informative as it pertains to Trey Reed and what's going on with him and all of that. And I also talked about 2 other people that were found, okay, so please make sure you all check that out at the end of the day. You may have to sign in because I don't know how long it's going to take them to review my edits to take that off of there, but it's worth the effort. With that all being said, I love you all to life. Each one teach one. That's how we grow and thrive. Do something productive, constructive, but never destructive. And always remember, beloveds, to keep the Most High first in your lives. Until next time, peace.
Gold all in my skin, God all in my blood, kings all in my circle. You touch one of mine and you're done. They show no love for the queen. Why you hating on me? Is it cause I'm free and I got Malcolm X in my jeans? I got dreams like King Luther, shed blood like Kunsa. You ain't helping my people, I ain't got nothing to say to ya. I want all the smoke like hookah. Talking reparations, America won't be great until they give us compensation. I'm like, I'm the hottest right now. See a bunch of lames out here trying to jock on my style. They be doing too much. I'm the queen, it's too easy. It's like they all at Popeyes, how they be talking so greasy. I just sit back and laugh while these haters get madder. So nefarious how they don't want my pockets with cheddar. I tell them they can do better. These snakes in the grass can leave a bite on your ass, cause y'all be trusting too fast. I got my foot on the gas, other one on they necks. Dropping receipts on haters, you better show some respect. I'm never facing regrets, we only facing the threats. Running through every challenge like a relay, break no sweat. It's a cold game, so I got that blanket with me. Now that my people awaken, ain't no going to sleep. I do not play by my piece, this time I'm playing for keeps. You talking slick, but when I see you like them ends, we gon' meet. And I got gold all in my skin, God all in my blood, kings all in my circle. You touch one of mine and you done. They show no love for the queen. Why they hating on me? Is it cause I'm free and I got Malcolm X in my jeans and I got gold all in my skin, God all in my blood, kings all in my circle. You touch one of mine and you done. They show no love for the queen. Why they hating on me? Is it cause I'm free and I got Malcolm X in my jeans and I got